Okay, welcome everyone. We're excited to be here from Harvard Business School on a Friday. Hope you're having a good Friday for those of you who are tuning in live. So I have 5 great current students here who are spending their Friday afternoon with us, talking about their experience at HBS. What we thought we'd do when we're on the road as an admissions team, we get to meet prospective students all over the world, and sometimes there are some myths about HBS, and so we just wanted to have real talk with a few real Harvard MBAs and just talk about their experience and answer some of the questions that we hear on the road all the time. So my name is Chad Losee. I'm actually a graduate of the business school as well. I graduated 5 years ago. And now I oversee admissions for the school. So I'll let everyone else introduce themselves. Dylan, can you start?
Hi guys, my name is Dylan Gomi. Before HBS, I worked in finance and foreign exchange, and now I'm transitioning into the wellness and fitness space, and I spent my summer at Equinox.
Hi, I'm Darren. I'm from the Midwest. I spent my career at retail and consumer goods and spent the summer at PepsiCo in global strategy.
Hey guys, I'm Shelby Colby. I spent my career prior to HBS in the education industry, and I'm transitioning to tech after school.
Hi everyone, I'm Catherine. Before HBS, I was working in global health, living in a few different countries in Africa, and I spent my summer at McKinsey, New York.
Hello everyone, my name is Alex Munoz. I'm from Mexico, and I worked in finance for a while, then transitioned into fintech, and this summer I spent my summer with the Mexican government working on the NAFTA renegotiation.
USMCA, right?
USMCA, everyone.
It's hard not to think of the YMCA song when you say it. All right, so one of the things that I think people are always curious about when we're visiting different cities around the world is, what is it? We talk a lot about the case method, and I think people know that it's a very discussion-based environment, but what they don't always have a great sense of is, what's the culture like among students? And since you're right next to me, Dylan, can you start us off with what has your experience been with the culture among the students here?
Sure. So I think a lot of people wonder how collaborative a place Harvard can be. The name might carry something that infers something different, but this is hands down one of the most collaborative environments I've ever been in. And I think a lot of that speaks to the fact that you listen to each of us and we all come from different experiences, and the reason why our school is so great is because we get to sharpen our skills and listen to people that have come from completely different backgrounds. I think last year, getting to listen to people that came in from the military, people that came in from retail and consumer goods, offers a diversity of perspectives that you will never get anywhere else. So thinking that you come here and it's very siloed, or you look to your left and look to your right and one of those people won't be there, that is the antithesis of Harvard. It's like, when I think about my decision to come here and how much I've grown, I can't imagine what my life would be like without having gone through the last year or without being at HBS, just because the people that I've met here have changed my life and changed the way I think and changed what impacts the type of leader that I want to be after. Yeah. So collaboration is the biggest thing I would say about our culture.
Does anyone have a specific example of collaboration or support that you got from a classmate?
Yeah, sure. I can give 2 maybe very quick examples that really blew me away. So the first one is about the study group. So you meet every morning at 8 a.m. with your study groups, and I was really nervous coming into school because I had no finance, accounting, or operations background, and those are pretty quantitative classes. And so all of my study group members came from a range of backgrounds and would really sit through, and even though they understood the material from years of experience, would talk through how to build a Excel model with all of the different cash flows for finance, or would help me through operations. And they never, while they probably already knew all of the material, they were so patient, every single morning for an hour, and I definitely credit all of them with doing well in all of those classes. But it just, to me, it really spoke a lot that it wasn't just oh, I already know this, I don't want to waste my time. And then additionally, when I was going through consulting recruiting, everyone in my section all met and helped each other case. So while we were all practicing for the same jobs, we spent 4 hours on a Saturday before some of the interviews, just each helping each other. And I was just really surprised at just how open and supportive everyone was when I was trying to learn it as well.
Any other thoughts or things anyone wants to add about the culture among students?
I think of the section dynamic is such a unique attribute of HBS. I mean, we all have section stories of when someone
just say for one sentence or two what a section is?
Yeah, so all 90 of us, we're split into 10 sections when we join HBS, and we take all of our first year classes with those 90 students, and the professors rotate through. So you're spending 30, 40, 50 hours a week with these same 90 students, and you build these really close relationships. And life happens when you're a student here, and so we had a section mate's parent pass, and like to see the section come together and be supportive in moments like that. Or when we're taking global trips together and like making friends in new cultures and new environments. The section has always been like another family as a student here.
Okay. Let me ask, some of you talked about where you were before and where you're thinking about going afterward. I think sometimes people think of an MBA as only useful for someone who's looking to make a pivot in their career. I mean, Shelby, you're thinking of making a pivot. So you're in that camp, but do you know classmates who aren't? And how did you think about staying in the same career versus switching to something else?
Totally. I have loved how the career orientation experience that I've seen in my peers here really runs the gamut. I have peers who came from the military and are now working in strategy jobs, like now looking to strategy, and like what could be in some ways more different than that. But there's so many of my peers that were in finance and want to return to finance, or we're in consulting and want to return to consulting, or we're in tech and want to return to tech. And I think what's really nice about the classroom experience here is it equips you to make that transition and to learn about a new industry like I have about tech for my time here, but also even if you're planning to go into that same industry you came from, you can re-enter it with a ton of new knowledge from your coursework, from the classes that you've decided to take in your second year. And I think with a student body as diverse as the one that we have at HBS, especially in terms of interest, I think, it's the whole gamut.
And sometimes we get the question, I know what I want to do and I want to stay in this track. Do I really need to leave and come back? Did any of you have some of those similar thoughts as you were thinking about business school, or can you speak to that?
I would say, and I say this to anyone, if you're thinking about grad school, you go when you feel like it's an opportunity and not an opportunity cost. So for me, I was like sitting at my desk at Merrill Lynch, and yes, I had a great career there, but I knew that there was something else that I wanted to do. And the idea of staying 1 or 2 more years in finance versus knowing I could go somewhere that would help me go where I wanted to go, which is into the fitness and wellness space, didn't make it feel like, oh, I should just like stay in it a little longer, maybe get a little more money or something, versus the opportunity to grow and actually like make money doing something I genuinely loved, and knowing that this Harvard was a place that could help me do that better. So opportunity versus opportunity cost is just how I weigh that.
And maybe just bring it back a little bit to, that the notion that business school is only for people that want to pivot. I'd say that, this is a general management course, and so this allows you to really develop and learn and try out different skills that you probably hadn't applied when you were in your previous role. So this really equips you to manage other people, lead programs and lead teams. So I think that it's a very different dynamic than when you're an individual contributor. Here we really learn about what it means to be a manager and really leading a team.
And I think, go ahead. I was just gonna say, I came in definitely wanting to stay within healthcare. And so I think that even if you know what you want to do, having 2 years to really take a step back and get a broader understanding. There are so many jobs that touch things that I'm really excited about within healthcare that I just had no idea even existed. And so I think even if you have a defined interest or a defined path, like just running through hundreds of cases over the course of the year really forces you to take a step back and think like, well, I know I want to do this, but is this the angle I want to do it in? And do I want to keep doing it this way my whole career? Do I want to think about other directions I might take? So I still find it very helpful.
Well, one thing I like to think about how the case method in the classroom experience has helped me with regard to this is like, I think in my role prior to school, I used to think like, oh, the problems that we're facing in this business are just unique to this business. And now like being in the case method has helped me be like, oh, like these are problems that businesses face all around the world, no matter what the industry is. And so I think even if, regardless if you're looking to switch or if you're wanting to stay in that same industry, coming back to it with that sort of broadened perspective is so helpful.
Yeah, that makes me think, I know that you've been through the first year. can you already notice how you're different in some ways? You just had an internship experience. You were back in the working world for the summer. Did you notice differences in how you lead or how you interact with people, or anyone want to speak to that?
I think probably my most noticeable growth at HBS has been just my ability to like communicate in a classroom setting in front of 90 people, reading a case and being able to analyze it, create insights and sort of defend a recommendation is a skill that I will use in my most immediate next job, but then in my career for the long haul.
Okay.
I mean, I'd say one thing that the case method does is it really puts you in the seat of the manager and making decisions. And so I think being more vocal about coming up with a point of view and really thinking not only about the impact on yourself, but the impact on an organization and other people. I think that's one of the things that I think has really changed for me, at least, over the last year. And I think about things much more holistically than I used to.
So one other aspect of the experience that we often get questions about is there's an academic experience, there's an experience outside of class. And I don't know, Catherine, can you speak to how that's balanced and what people should expect when they get to Harvard Business School?
Yeah, so I think that I was, to be fully frank, really afraid of going back to business school because I realized that I needed like a set of skills. I was working in settings abroad where I really realized that if I had like finance, accounting, operations, a whole bunch of other skills, there was so much that I think I'd be able to do and contribute, and I didn't have those. So I was very much coming back to like learn a set of skills and get exposure to a wide range of businesses and different settings. And so I was really worried. Everyone said, oh, business school is like a 2-year vacation. And I was like, I don't want to enter an environment where there's going to be this pressure to like always just be social when like I know I'm coming here to like learn a lot. And I was worried about that pressure. And I was actually like really shocked the first semester how I thought I was going to be maybe like the only one showing up to my study group with like all the questions answered. And I showed up the first day and like 4 people in my study group had like read all the cases, answered all the questions, like thought more about them and came so prepared. And I guess I hadn't realized like how I was very excited to see like how a lot of other people were really here for an academic experience. And I think for me, I sort of took a step back and realized like that's probably not what people, my friends that are years above me, might post on their Instagram like about their experience at HBS, but it very much is like an important part of that experience. And so I was just really surprised at to find a lot of other people who were here for the same reasons I was, and that like definitely was very encouraging. And I've just had so many really cool experiences, whether it's like working with professors on cases or exploring new areas, that it's been kind of, for me at least, exactly like the academic experience I wanted, but also like had a lot of fun for sure. Like it's not definitely at expense, but it's really like the balanced experience that I was like looking for.
And there's even things that are part of the HBS academic experience, like people show up to class on time. They don't leave until class is over and everyone's ready for class. I mean, that for me, I remember as a student was very different from my undergraduate experience, which in some ways felt more passive versus the active, really engaged case method. Does anyone else want to comment on this academic, how seriously, I guess, we take the academic part of things?
I think sort of an interesting foil to bring up here. My husband's in law school right now, which in a lot of ways, law school has this perception of it's like this really intensely rigorous academic experience. He's in class and then he's in the library. Like he doesn't spend as much time, socializing or going to dinners as I do. But what he doesn't have, like I have at HBS, is every single day, because of the case method, because I have to participate in class and I'm like graded on my participation class. Every single day I have to show up really well prepared, and there's an academic rigor to that even in this sort of perceived as very academic law school experience, he doesn't have. And so I think, like you mentioned, Chad, just people show up on time, like people don't get up in the middle of class. There's the norms around how this culture relates to the academic experience are amazing.
Okay, I want to switch gears a little bit because I think there are some myths out there about the admissions process. And so just reflecting on the admissions process itself, you all had a wide range of backgrounds before coming to HBS. I think sometimes people feel like, oh, they're only looking for people from quote unquote traditional industries or this kind of experience or went to that school, just reflecting on your own experience or those of your classmates. Just reflect on some of the diversity that's here in the class, maybe. Alex, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So I do think that there are a lot of myths in terms of you know what the ideal background should be, whether high GMAT or GPA, et cetera. And really, when it comes to it, I really think the application process was very holistic. I think that you really get to know the school, get to know the other people that are going to be with you, and the school gets to know you. And I think it's more about what you bring that's unique. So what makes you different, and what makes you potentially a leader that's gonna change the world, right? So I think that the school really has focused in terms of what makes each of the 900 people that are going to be in this class, what makes them unique and what can they contribute. So I don't think it's necessarily about what industry you came from, what GPA or GMAT you have. And really, I think that's been probably one of the things that I've enjoyed the most, is getting to meet people that come from myriad of industries and places and backgrounds. And I think that's what's really enriching, not only as a student, but also as a person, right? So I think that would be my main takeaway.
Wait.
Yeah.
And I kind of add a little visualization around that and say, I think of our class as a pie. Like, it isn't all made up of one ingredient. It isn't like constantly
Is
financed.
it like apple pie?
It's actually a mystery pie because the flavor changes every year. But like, whatever the ingredient is, like, not just like all finance, it's not all consulting. It's like a diversity of different industries that come in and then make it taste amazing. So like the idea that it's all just like one industry definitely isn't true, or the same type of person. If that was the case, then everybody that I worked with would be at HBS that applied, and that's not the case. Or everybody that gets a perfect score on the GMAT would be at HBS, and that is not the case. It's your individual story that actually makes that pie so flavorful. I think it's also the case that I'm just hungry. I will right now. But and like that is what the admissions process really is. It isn't a certain type of person. It's you. Yeah. It's your unique experience.
Yeah.
And what I've been impressed by is when you come onto campus from a diversity of backgrounds, there is a club, a community, an affinity group for you. And this campus is magnificent at like carving out paths and opportunities. I'm a marketer, so I'm deeply passionate at the marketing club, but you can go into any professional, hobby, nonprofit, healthcare, you name it, and there's an opportunity to find students who share that common passion on campus, and lets you explore that during your time in the MBA program.
I think as well, like I was at the Kennedy School as well for a year beforehand, and I was worried I was going to come here and there was going to be very few people with similar experiences. And there were a few students who also came from that program, but then my first day in class, I met people who had worked in governments around the world. They come directly from nonprofits. And so that really surprised me as well, because I thought I was going to be kind of the only nonprofit, only person one of the few people who had worked kind of in more of a developing setting. And I was blown away by like the number of people who shared my background and were sort of like kindred spirits as well. So.
I mean, Alex was just doing the negotiations. These are the kind of people you encounter.
I was following in your footsteps.
Did any of you, well, let me just put it this way. I think sometimes people think of the cost, right? I mean, you're foregoing your salary for 2 years. There's the cost of the program as well. How did you think about that when you were in their shoes? Was it like a very financial calculation for you? Did you have other elements of that decision? I mean, Shelby, do you want to kick us off on this one?
Yeah, I'll start. This was a huge thing for me. Taking on debt was terrifying to me. And I actually think like, I had this meeting with my career counselor, like a couple like weeks into school, starting to talk through what I was like trying to.
Once you were here?
Once I was here,
yeah.
and I think this was like one of the most helpful conversations, because I was sort of feeling the weight of like, I've taken on debt. This is really scary. And we were talking. I was like, well, what should I do? Like, I'm gonna have to pay this off. Like, how am I gonna think through ROI? And she's like, Shelby, if your HBS experience was exclusively about maximizing the ROI on your investment, like you should be focused on going to work for a hedge fund and like getting the most money that you can. And she's like, but that's not what you want to do, and that's not why you've invested in this experience. Like the experience is about so much more than just exclusively that sort of tangible ROI, which, now that I'm contemplating offers to return to companies after school, it's realizing like, oh, there's a real ROI. There's like a meaningful increase in what I'm getting paid, and the debt that I'm in is looking a lot more surmountable. But I think I will be the first to say it was really scary to think about making that financial commitment, and every single day that I'm here, I'm like so grateful that I made it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Darren.
Oh, it's a lifelong investment that
Yeah.
you're making. When I think about the relationship you'll have with alumni and professors and career services, and it's 2 years you're here on campus, but you almost have to amortize that
Exactly.
over
Exactly.
the long haul.
It's amazing. So this weekend we have a lot of reunions on campus, and it's amazing walking around and seeing alumni smiling and very happy. And I literally went up to somebody and I kind of asked, I was like, how do you feel 25, 30 years later about the investment you made? And they're like, it's the best decision I ever made. And I was like, even financially? And they're like, yeah. And no judgment, but like looking at, they look good, they look happy, and that's something I caught candidly. So I think reunions were a good way for me to kind of get that perspective where it's like people are coming back.
I love that. You're walking around cold calling.
kind of, but and that's also what Harvard lets you do, because you do get connected to alumni. But I remember feeling very similar to Shelby. Like, in my mid-20s, I was making more money than like I should be at that age, and I'm being willing to walk away from that. But I think you said it perfectly, where it's this investment in the rest of your life, where maybe not financially yet, but emotionally and like just through relationships that I've been able to make, I already feel the effects of that investment and kind of trust that that's something that'll pay off. And then even today, getting to see like flashes into the future, like I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah. Let me put one more question out there. So I think a lot of the people that are either listening right now or going to watch this later on may be on the fence about, there are some reasons why I should think about applying. There's some reasons maybe holding me back. Any advice you would give to someone who's on the fence about whether to apply to HBS?
What's the downside? What's the downside of just finding out if you could get in or not? I don't think there is one. And I think you owe it to yourself at this point, where if it's something that's been on your mind, to give yourself the shot to say no. And then the other thing that I said earlier, where it's like, think of the opportunity and then analyze the opportunity cost later. But
I don't
Go for it.
I don't know any student at HBS that knew when they applied it was a guarantee of getting it.
Yeah.
Like the insecurity of, am I good enough? This place is magnificent. Like, this place is a magical place. I mean, Disney has that tagline. We have our own, but I think when you look at that $250 application fee and say, gosh, like, if I push submit, like what's gonna happen? I think to your point exactly, like just submit the best application you can. Like when you push submit, you should be proud that says from end to end, this is who I am. I gave it my best try, and like, and if you don't, I think in the back of your head, you'll always wonder, like, as you're considering other schools, like, should I have applied to HBS? Would I have gotten in? Give it your best shot.
I also think the application process as a whole can be like a very good reflective experience. Not only just like applying to grad school and thinking about where you might want to be in the future, it forces you to take a step back, but also thinking like very specifically about HBS and like learning about different paths that people have taken here. I found that to be like a really rewarding experience. And then as well on interview day, like meeting other students who could be my potential classmates. Just so cool to see. I remember there were 3 people who had like worked on a submarine, and then one person in my interview today who had like also worked on constructing the submarine. And it was just so cool to hear all the different backgrounds that people had. And at that point I still was like, oh, there's no way I'm gonna get in. But like that got me so excited as well. So I think like even if you're not sure, to like just sort of go for it, and like you may be really surprised by how excited you get about the experience.
Yeah. Good. Well, we want to thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all very much for taking a Friday afternoon to share your thoughts, and I hope you have a wonderful second year at HBS. And for those of you who have signed up for the webinar, we will send out a recording in coming weeks. And thanks again for thinking of HBS. Our round 2 deadline is coming up in early January. So for those of you who are on the fence, we hope you'll really consider applying. Thanks a lot.